My name is Daniel. I am 40 years old, and I work as a project manager at a medium-sized architecture firm. My days are filled with plans, meetings, schedules, and problems that need solutions. A client changes their mind. A contractor misses a delivery. A permit takes longer than expected. I am the person who stays calm, makes a new plan, and keeps the whole thing moving. I have always been good at handling pressure. I used to think that if I worked hard and stayed steady, life would stay steady too. I believed loyalty mattered. I believed effort mattered. I believed if two people kept choosing each other, the marriage would hold. I did not believe I would ever be the man telling a story about betrayal. But here I am. When people hear about cheating, they often imagine the affair as the start of everything. They picture the first secret message, the first kiss, the first night in a hotel. They expect the big moment to be the moment of betrayal. For me, the real shift happened earlier. It was not the night she cheated. It was the night she laughed at me in front of other people, and I realized I was no longer her partner. I was her target. Before I tell you how it ended, I need you to understand how it started and how it slowly broke apart. Because it did not break in a single day. It cracked over time in quiet ways. It cracked every time I swallowed my feelings. It cracked every time she learned she could disrespect me and still keep the benefits of my loyalty. Emily and I met through friends at a small birthday gathering. I was in my early 30s. I had a stable job and a calm life. I was not chasing excitement. I was chasing peace. Emily walked into that room with energy. She laughed easily. She talked to everyone. She told a story about getting lost in a parking garage and made everyone laugh. When she looked at you, it felt like you mattered. We started dating. In the beginning, it felt simple. We had dinners, long talks, weekend trips, and lazy mornings. Emily liked attention, but felt playful back then. She liked compliments. She liked being admired. I thought it was part of her confidence. I liked making her smile. I liked being the steady man she could lean on. After a while, we moved in together. We built routines. We argued about small things like dishes and laundry. We laughed about our different habits. I folded clothes neatly. She tossed them on a chair. I woke up early. She stayed up late. It was normal couple stuff. It felt like building a life. We got married after a few years. It was not a huge wedding, but it was warm. Family and friends. Music. A simple dance floor. Emily cried during our vows. She squeezed my hand hard and promised we would always be a team. I believed her. I'm in my own vows too. I felt proud to be her husband. For a while, we were good. We went through normal stress. We paid bills. We fixed the house. We dealt with family issues, like her mother getting sick for a few months and recovering. We handled it. I drove Emily to appointments. I cooked on nights she was too tired. Emily thanked me, truly, and I thought this is what marriage is, carrying each other when life gets heavy. Then things changed. Not all at once, but slowly. Work got heavier for me. My firm took on bigger projects. I started staying later some nights. I tried to be present when I got home, but my brain was often tired. Emily said she understood, but I could feel her impatience growing. She wanted excitement. She wanted events. She wanted weekend plans that looked good in photos. She started spending more time with a small group of friends. Gina was one. Laura was another. Megan too. They were loud, confident, and very comfortable judging other people's relationships. They joked about husbands like husbands were furniture, useful, but not important. At first, I laughed along to be polite. Later, it started to bother me. Emily also began comparing our life to other lives. She would mention couples who travel more, couples who went out more, couples who seemed more fun. She would say it casually like she was just talking, but it always landed like a complaint. I tried to respond with action. I planned dates. I booked a weekend trip. I brought home her favorite snacks. I offered to take a few days off so we could do something together. Sometimes she smiled. Sometimes she seemed pleased. But the warmth did not last. It felt like her attention was always moving to the next thing. The teasing changed too. Emily always teased me, but it used to feel like flirting. It turned into jokes that made me look weak. At home, she would call me old man when I wanted a quiet night. In front of others, she would talk about me like I was clueless. She would use that sweet tone people use when they want to insult you without sounding mean. I brought it up once gently. I told her some jokes felt sharp. She rolled her eyes and said I was sensitive. She said everyone jokes like that. She said if I cannot take a joke, that is my problem. So I swallowed it. I did what a lot of men do. I told myself it was not worth a fight. I told myself to be stronger. I told myself to ignore it. I thought ignoring it would make it go away. It did not. It taught her that she could do it again. That is how the drip starts. You tolerate something once, and it becomes normal. Then you tolerate it again, and it becomes your role. I did not notice when my role changed from husband to punchline. I only noticed when it hurt enough that I could not explain it away anymore. That brings me to the first dinner that truly shifted me. We were at Gina's house. She had those casual backyard lights wrapped around the fence. Warm glow, music, people talking and laughing. The kind of evening where you expect comfort, not humiliation. Emily sat beside me with red wine, legs crossed, shoulders back, like she was holding court. She always had a flair for attention. In the early years, it was charming. Lately, it felt weaponized. Gina joked about marriage being 50-50. Emily tapped her fork against her glass like she was announcing a rule. She said loudly that in our house, it was not 50-50. She said Danny brings home the paycheck, but I make the decisions. Otherwise, we would still have beige curtains and canned soup dinners. People laughed. Heat crawled up the back of my neck. I tried to joke back. I said someone needs to approve the grocery list. Emily smirked and leaned back. She said exactly. Without me, he would be living like a bachelor with mismatched socks and frozen pizza every night. More laughter. I stirred my drink and stared at the ice. It was not just the words. It was the tone. Dismissive, like I was a joke. Later that evening, I offered to help clear the table. Emily patted my shoulder like I was a child. She gave the room a look that said, he is useful. Someone chuckled. I smiled, but a part of me went cold. On the drive home, she stared out the window, thumbs on her phone, screen tilted away from me. That had become her habit. Phone face down at night. Late nights with the girls. Perfume I did not buy. When I asked if she enjoyed dinner, she said, relax, it is a joke. She said I was too sensitive. I swallowed it. I always did. After that night, I started noticing things I had avoided. I noticed how often she talked down to me in public. I noticed how she smiled at other men in a way she no longer smiled at me. I noticed how she guarded her phone like it was a secret diary. But even then, I was not ready to accuse. I did not want to be the jealous husband. I did not want to be wrong. I did not want to create a conflict that could not be undone. So I tried to act normal. The problem is, acting normal does not fix something that is already broken. It only delays the moment you finally admit it. The next weeks, the drips became louder. Emily came home at 11, then midnight, then 2 in the morning. She would toss her shoes by the door and say we had wine. You would not understand. I tried to talk. She rolled her eyes and said I was suffocating her. She said she needed fun, not schedules. I started doing something I never did before. I started listening for the sound of her car. I would be in bed, pretending to sleep, but my brain would be awake waiting. When the headlights flashed through the window, my chest would tighten. When the door opened, I would hear her laugh softly at something on her phone. She would walk past me without a kiss. The house felt like 2 separate lives under one roof. We shared a mortgage and a kitchen, but not a relationship. One night, I found a receipt in her coat pocket. 2 cocktails, 1 appetizer, 2 entrees. Not a girl's night menu. When I asked, she shrugged and said she was hungry. No apology. No explanation. Just that cold shrug. I let it go, though it burned on the way down. In bed, I started sleeping on the edge of the mattress while she angled herself away like a border guard. Her body drew a line. I was not allowed to cross it. At work, I tried to focus, but my mind kept drifting. I would stare at a schedule, and my eyes would see numbers, but my thoughts would be somewhere else. I started making small mistakes, which is unlike me. I forgot to send an email. I missed a call. My assistant asked if I was okay. I smiled and said I was tired. I was tired, but not from work. I was tired from uncertainty. Uncertainty is its own kind of exhaustion. It drains you slowly. You spend energy guessing, interpreting, and replaying conversations. You argue with yourself. You say maybe I'm overthinking. You say maybe it is nothing. Then you see another sign, and your stomach drops again. That's when Mark pulled me aside after work. Mark is a coworker, but he's the kind of man who says the truth even when it is uncomfortable. He asked if I was good. He said Emily had been different. He said he had seen her out a couple times, not with friends, but with a guy from her office. I did not ask for details at first. My brain was frozen. Mark waited. Then he said he did not want to be the guy spreading rumors, but he also did not want to watch me get played and say nothing. He said the guy was in marketing. He said he saw them at a bar. He said it looked like more than coworkers talking. I told Mark I was fine. I lied. I was not fine. On the drive home that day, my hands were steady on the wheel, but my chest felt hollow. I kept hearing Mark's words. In marketing. At a bar. More than coworkers. When I walked into the house, Emily was there, acting normal. She asked what I wanted for dinner like nothing was wrong. Her face was calm. Her phone was in her hand. I looked at her and felt like I was looking at 2 people at once. The wife I married and a stranger. That night, I did not accuse her. I was still hoping I was wrong. I was still clinging to the comfort of doubt. But the comfort of doubt disappears when someone keeps humiliating you in public. The next turning point came at another dinner at Gina's. Same house, same big oak table, candles, pasta, the works. Emily was glowing, laughing louder than anyone. She seemed energized, like the room fed her. She turned to me, placed her hand on my arm, and spoke with a voice sharp as polished steel. She said, Danny is sweet, but bless him, he tries too hard. Always fixing things, checking in like I made of glass. People chuckled politely, unsure. It was not funny. It was a public review of my worth. I set my fork down. I said quietly that trying is not a flaw. Emily smirked and said, sometimes effort is just insecurity in a nice shirt. The table froze. Not a big explosion, just a quiet humiliation. That night, I drove home in silence. Emily hummed along with the radio like nothing happened. And for the first time, I did not go to bed angry. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the wall until my coffee went cold. That was the moment a decision formed. If her game was public, mine would be quiet and clean. The next day, I called a private investigator. Even dialing the number felt humiliating. It felt like admitting failure. I had always believed I could talk through problems. I had always believed marriage was reparable if you worked hard enough. Calling an investigator felt like saying I do not trust my wife, and I need proof to protect myself. When he answered, his voice was calm. He did not sound surprised. He said he'd heard this story many times. He asked if I wanted clarity or drama. I said clarity. He said he provided clarity. We met in a small office above a dry cleaner. There were no movie-style gadgets, no dramatic boards with strings, just a desk, a chair, and a man who asked careful questions and took notes. He explained what he could and could not do. He would not break laws. He would not hack phones. He would observe. He would document. Patterns would show. He asked me what I wanted from the truth. That question landed hard, because part of me wanted to not know. Part of me wanted to stay in the dark because the dark still allowed hope. But I was tired of the drip. I was tired of the humiliation. I was tired of being treated like a joke. I told him I wanted the truth, whatever it was. Within 2 weeks, he had it. He showed me photos and timelines. Emily with a man from her office. Late-night bars. Parking lots. A hotel entrance. He showed me dates that matched the nights she came home late. He showed me locations that matched her excuses. The most painful part was how ordinary it looked. It was not passionate and dramatic. It was routine. It was planned. It was a pattern. He also told me something else. Emily's friends knew. They covered for her. They helped her build excuses. They were planning a group dinner where they would corner me, push for a mature separation, and make it look like I was the unstable one. They wanted to paint me as controlling and clingy. They wanted Emily to leave with sympathy. The investigator said they had already talked about it in messages he saw on a phone screen when one of them left it open at a bar. He said they planned lines and phrases. He said they wanted to keep it calm and adult, which is often code for we will pressure you to accept our story. Hearing that made something in me settle. It was not only the affair. It was the scheme. It was the idea that they wanted to humiliate me again, this time with a fake concern for maturity. They did not know I already held the truth in a folder next to my coffee machine. I called a lawyer too, quietly. I did not tell anyone. I sat in an office across from a woman who spoke in plain language. She asked about assets, the house, accounts, and how long we had been married. She did not ask me to rant. She asked me to plan. She told me the goal was not revenge. The goal was protection and clarity. She explained that cheating does not always change property outcomes, depending on where you live, but evidence can matter for negotiation and for peace. She explained paperwork and timelines. She explained that a calm plan is stronger than an emotional storm. I nodded. I took notes. I felt like my life was turning into a project plan, except this one was my heart. When the invite for the group dinner came, Emily smiled like it was nothing. She said, just a friendly dinner. I nodded and said, sure, I will bring something. I did not mean dessert. I meant proof. The week before the dinner felt like my brain was split. Half underwater, slow and numb. Half electric, alert and sharp. Emily was strangely pleasant, almost sweet. She brought me coffee one morning. She kissed my cheek. She said she missed our old pace. She said she missed how we used to laugh. For a moment, I wanted to believe her. For a moment, I wanted to let the past cover the present like a blanket. But then I remember the photos, the receipts, the hotel entrance, the lie built on lie, and I felt the folder in my desk drawer like a heavy stone. I stopped checking her phone. Not because I trusted her, but because I did not need to check anymore. I stopped begging for answers because answers were already in my hand. I watched instead. I watched how she dressed sharper for her nights out. I watched how she changed perfume twice in one evening. I watched how she left the house with her phone at 32% battery and somehow stayed out for 6 hours without charging. I watched how she came home and acted calm, like she had done nothing wrong. I said goodnight calmly when she came home late. She smirked like she had won something. She did not know she had already lost. The investigator sent updates in simple sentences. Tuesday night, dark bar booth. Thursday, same man, different place, wine bar by the river, their legs touching under the table. Sunday afternoon, his car, parking lot behind a bookstore. No emotion, just facts. It was almost boring in a tragic way. Betrayal is rarely cinematic. It is routine. I spent those days making myself a promise. I would not scream. I would not beg. I would not be the husband who breaks in public. I would be the man who walks in with truth and walks out with peace. Friday evening, Emily called from Megan's place around 6. She said they might open a second bottle. I heard music behind her. Then a male laugh came through the speaker. Clear and close. My stomach tightened, but I did not confront. I said drive safe. That startled her more than a fight would have. Silence, then a soft okay. The next morning, she woke up around 11. Mascara smudged. Hung over. She looked at me like she expected a lecture. I poured coffee and handed her a cup. She blinked and said I was quiet. I told her she needed space, and I was giving it. Something flickered in her eyes. Confusion or guilt, I cannot tell. That night, she sat next to me on the couch scrolling. She glanced at me like she was waiting for the explosion. I did not give her one. Instead, I went to the garage, took the manila folder, and placed it inside my work bag. It was almost time. Sunday evening, the group dinner finally came. Gina texted a reminder, overly cheerful. Bring a side dish. We will talk as adults. She added a heart emoji. The emoji made me laugh. Adults do not stage ambushes, I thought. I ironed a clean shirt. I trimmed my beard. I looked in the mirror and saw a man who had been quiet for too long. Not weak, not loud, just awake. Emily wore a red dress I used to love. It looked like a costume now. She kissed my cheek lightly, testing temperature. I did not lean in or pull away. I accepted it like a handshake. She asked if I was ready. I said more than you know. On the drive, she talked about nothing. Traffic, weather, Megan's new haircut. I answered politely. Her hands trembled a little on the purse in her lap. Maybe instinct whispers even when the mind denies. Gina's house glowed with warm lights and soft music. People laughed inside. Someone grilled steak on the patio. Everything looked normal, like the world before impact. We walked in. Emily's friends hugged her too long. They looked at me with faces that tried to practice sympathy. I nodded and sat at the table. Laura poured wine and said they were glad we came. She said communication is important. It sounded rehearsed. Emily placed her hand on my arm, but not affectionately. Performatively. She began in a gentle voice, like a teacher breaking bad news. She said they had all talked, and they thought maybe we needed some space. Maybe a break would be healthy. The women nodded like synchronized bobbleheads. Laura added a trial separation. Nothing hostile, just clarity. I looked around the table slowly. I let my silence stretch. I could feel their throats tighten as they waited for me to speak. Then I asked if this dinner was an intervention. Emily sighed like a martyr. She said it was not an intervention, just a mature conversation. She said I'd been tense. She said I kept checking in and questioning her. She said it felt controlling. The word controlling hung in the air. I repeated it softly. Then I reached down, unzipped my bag, and pulled out the manila folder. I set it gently beside my plate. The table changed temperature. Gina stopped cutting her chicken. Laura blinked fast. Emily's face drained a shade. Emily asked what it was. Her voice cracked barely. I said evidence. My tone was calm, casual, like reading weather. I opened the folder carefully, like it was tax papers. I slid the first page forward. A photo outside a wine bar. Emily with a man from marketing, close and intimate. A second page, receipts. A third page, a bookstore parking lot, car interior visible through fogged windows. The room went very still. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Emily reached for the photos like she wanted to hide them, but her hands stopped halfway. Frozen. Laura's face turned pale. Gina looked at Emily with horror. I leaned back and took a sip of water. If we're discussing space, I said, voice steady, I agree. But let us be honest about who needed it and how she took it. Emily opened her mouth. Shut it. Open again. I lifted a hand slightly. Not a threat. A boundary. I told her not to talk. Not tonight. Not here. She already made her version public. It was my turn. I said I was not there to argue. I was there to inform. Our marriage was over. I was filing. I brought papers to make it clean. Tonight was not my humiliation. It was clarity. The silence in that dining room felt louder than any argument we ever had. Emily's hand shook near her wine glass, but she did not touch it. Laura stared at the photos like they were snakes. Gina covered her mouth, eyes wet, but not with sympathy for Emily. More like realization that everything she had been told was a lie. I watched without satisfaction. Betrayal stopped hurting once truth became heavier than hope. Emily swallowed hard. She begged to talk privately. I met her eyes calmly. I told her she made our marriage public entertainment. She mocked me in front of friends. She let them believe I was weak, insecure, clingy. She wanted eyes on me when I was the punchline. Now, they could watch the truth. She reached toward me again, slower, like approaching fire. She whispered it was not serious. She said it was just attention. She said she felt unseen. I almost laughed at the irony. Unseen from the woman who demanded spotlight. I told her she was seen, just not measured. Laura asked Emily if she really did it. Emily snapped that it was none of Laura's business. Her voice cracked in a panic, then shrank. I said quietly that it was their business. They helped plan this dinner, hoping I would break down so Emily could leave with what she wanted. Fair split, sympathy, maybe applause. But all I brought was truth. One by one, chairs pushed back. Laura stood, pale, muttering about needing air. Gina shouted at Emily, not at me. She said Emily lied and used them. Another friend cursed and walked out. The unity they planned shattered like a dropped plate. Emily stayed frozen while the room emptied around her. When only we were left, she said she messed up. She said we built a life, 8 years. She asked if we could fix it. I looked at her carefully, not with anger, but with clarity, the kind that does not shake anymore. I told her I already fixed it. I stopped chasing you. I stood, took the folder, the papers, everything. Emily followed me to the door, like someone chasing a bus already pulling away. Outside, the cool night air smelled clean, like fresh asphalt after rain. She grabbed my arm gently. No claws, just trembling hope. She said we could start over. She promised she would stop going out. She promised she would block him. She said she would do anything. I untangled her fingers from my sleeve. I told her she would do everything, but not with me. Her face folded with grief, disbelief, regret, but too late. I got into my truck and drove home alone. In the days after the investigator showed me the evidence, I kept everything quiet. I did not confront Emily right away because I wanted to be sure I would not get pulled into a fight that made me look unstable. I also wanted my own mind to stay steady. If I accused her too early, she would deny it, cry, blame me, and then go back to her secret life with better hiding. So instead of confronting, I prepared. I made copies of everything. I stored digital copies in a secure place. I kept the paper folder where I could reach it quickly. I wrote down dates and details, not for revenge, but so no one could twist the story and make me doubt myself later. Betrayal can make you question your own memory. I did not want that. I met with the lawyer again and asked simple questions. What happens if she tries to move money? What happens if she tries to change the locks? What happens if she tries to claim I was abusive or controlling? The lawyer did not react with drama. She spoke like a professional. She told me to stay calm, keep records, and do nothing that could be used against me. She told me to communicate in short, respectful lines if I had to communicate at all. She told me to keep everything civil because civil wins. I started looking at our finances like a project plan. I made a list of accounts, bills, and automatic payments. I changed passwords on my own accounts. I made sure my paycheck did not land in an account she could drain. I did not do it in a sneaky way that would be illegal. I did it in a careful way that protected me. I also changed a few routines around the house, small things. I moved important documents into a safe place. Birth certificates, insurance papers, house paperwork, things you do not think about until a breakup makes you realize how easily someone can create chaos. At night, Emily would sit near me and scroll on her phone, acting relaxed. I could feel her checking my mood. She watched my face more than she watched her screen. It was like she wanted to know if I knew. Sometimes she would try to start a warm conversation, like a test. She would say, "Remember that trip we took?" She would say we should go back there. She would laugh softly and touch my shoulder. Part of me wanted to give in. Part of me wanted to accept the soft version of her and pretend the hard version was not real. But that is what betrayal does. It tries to keep you hooked with small kindness while it breaks your trust in secret. I did not give her the scene she wanted. I did not give her the comfort she expected. I stayed calm. I stayed quiet. I stayed focused. I told Mark a little, not everything, but enough. I told him I had proof. He looked angry for me, but he also looked relieved. He said he was proud that I was handling it calmly. He said people like Emily count on you losing your temper because then they can point at your anger and call it the problem. His words matched what my lawyer said. Stay calm. Stay clear. I did not tell my family yet. I did not want my mother crying on the phone while I was still trying to stand up. I did not want my father offering advice that would push me into a fight. I wanted to do this cleanly first, then explain it later. The week before the group dinner, Emily became almost cheerful. It was like she felt the plan approaching and wanted to make sure I walked into it looking guilty. She cooked dinner one night and set the table like we were a happy couple. She asked me about work with a warm voice. She asked if I wanted to watch a movie. She even laughed at one of my jokes. If I did not have the proof, I might have fallen for it. I might have thought she was coming back. But I noticed how her kindness had timing. It appeared when she wanted something. It disappeared when she did not. That kind of kindness is not love. It is strategy. One night, she went out and came home later than usual. She walked in quietly, trying not to wake me. I was already awake. She smelled like wine and a different cologne, faint but present. She took a shower immediately, which she never used to do at that hour. She left her phone on the counter for a second, screen down like always. She moved like someone protecting a secret. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the water run, and I realized the hardest part of betrayal is not the other person. It is the loss of your own peace. It is the way your home stops feeling safe. It is the way your mind becomes a detective you never asked to hire. In those days, I learned something about myself. I learned that I had been trying to save the relationship alone. I had been doing the work of two people. I had been carrying both sides because I thought that is what love looks like. But love is not one person trying and one person mocking. Love is two people protecting each other in public and in private. Love is two people choosing respect even when they are frustrated. Emily had stopped choosing respect. She had chosen attention instead. That knowledge hurt, but it also freed me. It made my decision feel less like a punishment and more like a boundary. It made me see divorce not as failure, but as a refusal to accept humiliation as my normal life. That'd be why the time Sunday came. I did not feel like a man walking into a trap. I felt like a man walking into a meeting where the truth would finally be said out loud. After the dinner at Gina's, the story did not end instantly. Real life has aftershocks. The next days were full of small moments that tested my resolve. Emily texted me long messages at first. She said she was sorry. She said she was confused. She said the man meant nothing. She said I embarrassed her. She said I ruined her life. Those messages changed tone like the weather. 1 hour she begged. The next hour she blamed. The next hour she promised. I did not argue. I replied in short lines when needed. I told her the marriage was over. I told her to communicate through the lawyer for legal matters. I refused to debate the truth. Debate is what liars want, because debate creates space for doubt. Proof does not need debate. She showed up at the house once when she knew I would be home. She stood on the porch and cried. She asked me to let her in so we could talk like adults. I looked at her through the window and felt something sad in my chest. Not for her, but for the years we could have had if she chose respect. I opened the door just enough to speak calmly. I told her there was nothing left to talk about. I told her she had months to tell the truth, and she chose lies. I told her I was not going to rebuild a house on rotten wood. She asked me if I ever loved her. That question almost broke my calm. Not because it was hard to answer, but because it was manipulative. Of course I loved her. That was the point. My love was real. Her respect was not. I told her I did love her. Past tense. I told her love without trust turns into pain, and I will not live in pain just to prove I can tolerate it. She asked for another chance. She offered to quit her job. She offered to block him. She offered to stop seeing her friends. She offered anything. And that is when I understood something clearly. People offer everything when they lose control. They did not offer everything when they are still comfortable. She did not offer me respect when she had power. She offered me promises only when she realized her story was collapsing. I told her no. When she left the porch, she walked like someone carrying a heavy bag. I did not feel happy. I felt quiet and resolved. Her friends reacted in messy ways. Gina texted me first. She apologized. She said she did not know everything. She said she thought Emily was just unhappy and that I was being controlling. She said she felt used. She asked if we could talk. I did not respond right away. I needed space from all of them. Their house had been the stage where my humiliation happened twice. I did not want to sit on that stage again, even for an apology. Laura sent a message too, shorter. She said she was sorry. She said she never expected proof like that. She said she felt sick. Megan said nothing. I learned something from their reactions. Some people prefer the simple story that makes them feel comfortable. They prefer the story where you are the problem, because then they do not have to confront their own choices. When the truth showed up, it forced them to face what they helped build. Mark stayed steady. He checked on me. He brought food one night. He did not push me to talk when I did not want to. He sat on my couch and watched a game with me in silence, like his presence was saying you are not alone. That kind of friendship matters. Not the loud kind, but the quiet kind. I also started seeing a therapist, not because I thought I was broken, but because I wanted to heal cleanly. I did not want to carry bitterness into the rest of my life. I wanted to understand why I tolerated humiliation for so long. I wanted to learn how to hold boundaries without guilt. In therapy, I said something that surprised me. I told the therapist I felt ashamed. Not because Emily cheated, but because I stayed quiet while she mocked me. I felt ashamed that I let my own value get questioned in public. I felt ashamed that I tried to earn respect by being more helpful. The therapist said something simple. He said respect is not earned by tolerating disrespect. Respect is protected by boundaries. That sentence stuck with me. It felt like a new rule for my life. As the divorce process moved forward, I focused on small routines. I woke up at the same time. I made coffee. I went for a jog. I made my bed. I answered work emails. I cooked simple meals. I cleaned as I went. Those routines were not exciting, but they rebuilt my sense of control. They reminded me that my life was still mine. There were also moments of grief that surprised me. Sometimes I would see a place we used to go, a restaurant, a park, a street corner, and my chest would tighten. Not because I wanted Emily back, but because I missed the version of my life that felt safe. I missed the belief that my home was a team. I missed the simple comfort of thinking the person beside me was loyal. Grief is not always about missing the person. Sometimes it is about missing the future you thought you had. On those days, I reminded myself of the dinners at Gina's. I remembered the laughter at my expense. I remembered the way Emily patted my shoulder like a child. I remembered the way she used the word controlling as a weapon. I remember the photos, the receipts, the routine. Truth is a bitter medicine, but it cures the illusion. As weeks passed, the house started to feel different. At first it felt empty, then it started to feel peaceful. I could walk from room to room without expecting criticism. I could leave a dish in the sink for an hour without hearing sarcasm. I could watch a show I liked without being called boring. Those small freedoms added up. One Saturday, I cleaned out the closet and found an old card Emily wrote me early in our marriage. It talked about forever and teamwork. I read it once and then put it away. I did not burn it. I did not rip it. I did not need drama. I simply acknowledged it belonged to a version of us that no longer existed. That is another hard truth. People can be sincere at one time and still become careless later. The past does not erase the present, and the present does not erase the past. But you live in the present. You make choices in the present. My choice was to protect my peace. The last time I saw Emily in person was at the grocery store, weeks after she moved out. She stood alone near the dairy aisle, fingers adjusting her sweater sleeve. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but emotionally. The confidence she wore like armor was missing. She looked tired. When she noticed me, she froze like she saw a ghost. She walked over slowly and said she wanted to say sorry. I nodded and told her I knew. She said she thought I would hate her. I told her I did not hate her. I just did not belong in her story anymore. She blinked fast like tears wanted to escape, but pride held them back. She said she missed us. I looked at her kindly. I told her she missed who she was with me. There's a difference. She nodded, defeated, and started to say if I ever changed my mind. I stopped her gently. I told her I would not. We parted without drama. No lingering hands. No promises. Just closure like a door that finally clicks shut. Later that night, I sat on my porch. The sunset warmed the yard. The sky faded slowly. I thought about how strange it is that a life can break slowly, drip by drip, and then end in one clean moment. Not with shouting, not with plates breaking, but with truth on paper. Betrayal did not define me. My response did. I did not win by humiliating her. I won by refusing to be humiliated anymore. I learned that peace is not something someone gives you. Peace is something you choose when you stop begging for crumbs and start walking with dignity. If you made it this far, subscribe to the channel. It supports what we do here. I went inside, and turned off the light. My house, my peace, my rules. And for the first time in years, it felt like home.